Have you ever had a gut feeling about something and you ignored it, you didn't listen to it, but then later you realized that you probably should? That is why we need to listen to our intuition. And it's not always easy to do, but the more that you do it, the easier it becomes to tune into the voice of your intuition and you allow it to guide you, especially in very important big decisions. Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome back to the channel. It's Krizia here. Today we're diving into how to use your intuition to guide you in achieving your goals. If you're feeling stuck and you don't know where to start, then keep watching until the end because we're gonna tap into your inner wisdom. Think of it as a compass that can lead you to your dreams. That's how I see it. First, let's talk about what your intuition is. It's technically a GPS that guides you on where to go without having to use a map. It's that inner voice or that feeling of right from wrong, even when logic doesn't have the answers. And it's also one of the reasons why I now use intuition over logic in many cases. Actually, our minds are really powerful, but sometimes our heart and our instincts know better. So now, how do we tune into our intuition? I have naturally always been an intuitive person to some level. If you're one of those people, let me know in the comments. If not, no worries. I do think there's just some things that you can do that can help you listen to your intuition clearer. We all have intuition. Some of the tips that have really helped me is meditation. Meditation is truly the best practice, I think, for so many reasons, but especially to hearing your intuition, which I kind of talked about in my glow up video, which if you haven't seen, I'll leave a link for you to watch that. Basically, meditation can be very life-changing. You know, I think a lot of people see meditation as this, just sit with our legs crossed and our fingers like this and close our eyes and we go, I like to just simplify it. What meditation really is time to slow down your thoughts. You know, we have so many thoughts in a day that if we're not intentional about slowing down our minds, we are constantly being pulled from so many directions about so many things. And now with social media, seeing so many things, hearing so many things, it's like constant chatter and clutter in our minds. And meditation, even if you feel, especially actually if you feel like you can't sit still, meditation is truly just a moment to yourself with no distractions. And even if you can't sit there for a long time, like I still struggle to sit for hours like some people do to meditate, but you can commit to 5 minutes a day, even just 5 to 10 minutes. And I promise you, you will start to hear your own voice so much clearer, and that is so necessary for following your intuition, because how can you listen to your inner guidance if you don't even know what that voice sounds like? I know some people in my life personally who are like, I could never. And you can't force people to, of course. I've realized the hard way, because as much as I'm like, it's so needed, you need it, you just can't. When I started meditating, I would see and hear all of my thoughts like one big mess disaster. And I was like, this is not working for me. But that's actually the point, is that's how I started before I meditated, was my brain was filled with so much noise and random thoughts. And I had, like, I think they call it monkey brain, when you would just have one thought interrupted by another thought and then it just like keeps going. That's how it used to be when I first started meditating. And I was like, wow, I can't imagine what my brain is actually like if this is what I can notice of it right now in this moment of stillness. By lowering the volume on outside noise, you're going to be able to turn up the volume on your own inner voice, which is going to help you hear that in moments when you need to lean on it the most. So I've talked about this in my inner glow up video also, but it's journaling, and journaling is so helpful. Journaling has been a practice I've been using for years now, and I've kind of changed my ways of journaling, like here and there, slightly different methods. If you want a more in-depth video of how I journal and some tips around that, let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to make a video. Basically going to be great, kind of like meditating, because you're able to flush out your thoughts. And depending on how you journal, you know, you can just do what I call a brain dump, where I just write down anything that comes to mind, no structure, just what's on my mind, what is bothering me, how do I feel? And then the more that you do that, you'll start to notice the patterns of that connection with how you're feeling to what you're actually thinking. When you start to see it on paper, the more that you journal, the more you can see and make that connection of like, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way today. This is why I'm feeling upset, or this is what helped me feel better. It's like in music instruments that you have to tune them, right? Like you have to tune your inner voice. And sometimes you'll be surprised the things that you end up writing down, you didn't even realize you were thinking about. So that's also your intuition speaking. Another way to listen to your intuition, actually this has helped me a lot recently, especially because I've been trying to get my 10,000 steps in. It's basically going for nature walks. Nature walks are really helpful because there's something about it, especially I like to do this sometimes with or without my headphones, but I notice especially without, if there's no noise around me, it helps me just connect with nature and myself, and anything that can help slow you down in some way of like the everyday life chaos, and being able to slow down and hear your own inner wisdom and connect, especially with there's something about feeling the wind outside or the sun hitting your skin. I love being in the sun. It's to the point where I know it's probably bad for me, but I love the feeling of warmth from the sun, especially right in the morning when I wake up. But if you can go for a little nature walk, it just connects you back to yourself, which again all helps with being able to hear your own wisdom. And then the fourth tip is listen to your body. Okay, I've read this in so many books and I've now started to understand the concept a lot more, but basically pay attention to your body when you are in certain situations, around certain people, or making certain decisions, saying certain things. Like pay attention to physical reactions to your environment. Because, for example, some people will have body reactions like hives or something when they're in a bad relationship. I've heard this so many times. People would have random outbreaks of physical conditions, and of course everyone should seek, help and get a doctor and all that stuff. I'm not saying this is the reason or cause for everyone, but just as an example, some people would get body reactions to emotional triggers, and that's just a more extreme example. But another example on a smaller scale would be like, if you work at a job that whenever you speak to your boss, it's like you could feel your body like tensing, closing up, then it's most likely your inner wisdom telling you you're not in the right environment. And it's also like, okay, for example, when how some people say you're not an introvert, you're just introverted around the wrong people. I really believe that now, and I found that I would feel like an introvert around a lot of people because I just didn't, like, my body physically, my energy wasn't on the same frequency, it didn't connect. And then I've noticed when I'm around people that give me like a calm energy, my body just feels more relaxed. I'm more open to conversation, and I don't feel like I have that wall up. So those are just a few examples, but basically pay attention, just as an experiment, pay attention to your body when you're in certain environments. See if you can find any patterns or consistencies there, which will help you fine-tune your intuitive compass. And then another personal story that I want to share about how I've used my intuition to guide me. For example, like right before the pandemic hit, when I first moved to LA, my goal was to be a music artist. I was singing, I was songwriting, that was my main focus. I was like so stuck on this path, right? And right when the lockdown happened of quarantine, all my shows, of course, got canceled. And it just suddenly, it was weird because during that lockdown period, I know a lot of us had this experience where you looked at certain parts of your life and yourself and you realized where disconnects had been happening that you maybe weren't able to see before because of how much time we had to ourselves to think and reflect. I started to notice some things, some patterns where I was like, okay, I say that I really want to be in music, but like when looking back, like I've always had anxiety working in music. It constantly brought me anxiety, and not in a way where it was like, of course things are uncomfortable and new. It's gonna be uncomfortable, but it was in a way where I would physically feel anxiety for every little thing. I used my intuition in that moment because something was telling me that I was just not on the right path. And I've talked about this before, and the more I reflect on it, I realized that was my intuition speaking, because I would get these feelings like things were not working out. I had a strong intuitive feeling to start a business. And for whatever reason, I've never started a business before, like a product business. And no one in my life, no one in my family had ever started a product business. So I know that had been a lifelong dream of mine and like down the road, but I never really thought of it happening at that very moment. And so anyways, I launched a business during the pandemic, and it was the most scary, like left field thing I've ever done, but also the most eye-opening thing I have ever done. And it actually was doing pretty well. Like I was so excited and passionate about this. And I was like, this is it. This is where my success is gonna happen. And just a year in, doing pretty well. Like it sold out. A huge company basically challenged my trademark logo, even though we were selling entirely different products. And it was this whole legal thing. A lot of people were telling me that I should fight it. At the time, that was when my dog passed away, and I just didn't have the energy to go through that kind of fight. It just didn't make sense in my life. I went through the process of filing a new trademark and all these things. And then once it got approved, I felt that gut feeling again, where it was like, this is not it right now. This is not the opportunity for you. It was weird because I had gotten my new logo, I was ready to go, and I felt like I could have technically kept going, but that intuition just kicked in, and I felt this feeling before. And because I had gone through that shift with music already, it was a little less scary for me. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna consider this a loss for right now, consider it a lesson, even though I had spent a lot of money on it. I didn't want to be hung up on making the wrong choices that didn't feel right. And so that's when I leaned into content, and because I was already doing content to promote the product. Now that's my full-time thing, and it ended up being the space where I feel the most authentic to myself, and I feel the most joy. Like I actually want to invest more time and effort into this. Feels so right. And again, listening to your intuition sometimes it's scary. You know, you're making huge choices sometimes, and I had switched so many careers at this point that it just becomes a little less scary and a little easier to follow each time. So anyways, yeah, I thought I'd just share that personal story to add some context. Okay, now that you've tapped into your intuition, you're probably thinking, how do I use this to achieve my goals? First thing is set very clear intentions. You have to be so clear about what you want. And this is where I think a lot of people get stuck and hung up on it, because we think we have to want something forever. And as you can see in my example, I did not do anything forever. In fact, I switched my career so many times that it was way off from forever, sometimes just a year, 6 months, whatever. But just think about right now. Like, what is your intention for yourself right now? What goals do you want to achieve? And what do you want your life to look like? You can't hop in the car and be like, I want to get to a random destination and don't know where you're going and expect to get there. You know, you have to at least give an address to your GPS. So in order to listen to your intuition, you have to give yourself guidance on where you at least want to go. The second thing is trust the process. It's easier said than done, but you really have to surrender. This is the most important part, because our ego wants to control the situation. And I struggled with this a lot in the beginning, because I used to be someone who wanted to control the outcome. I like to be able to know, if I put in X amount of effort, this is what I'll achieve, and by this date, and this is how I'm gonna get there. But that's our ego driving us, because our ego wants to control every little aspect of our journey. And trusting your intuition is more of a connection with your higher self, with a higher source, your spirituality. You have to trust that once your intentions are set, it's done, and that's it. You don't have to question, but how am I gonna do it? Or but how am I gonna get there? You just need to know why. Why is it important? Why do you want it? And why it matters to you. And then the third thing is act on your gut feelings. Kind of like how I did as an example, because I feel like hopefully could be a good example of taking inspired action. When you feel something in your gut and you feel really strongly about it, try to take action as soon as possible. Whether it's anything small, like For example, when I first launched my product business, I had been thinking about it, but not too long. Honestly, I felt super inspired at the time and I felt like it was just the right thing to do. So the quickest thing I could do was start learning about how to launch a product. And I spent countless days and nights researching, writing down, formulating, talking to suppliers overseas. And whatever that looks like for you, just try to take action as quickly as possible, because that is where you can make powerful moves. You have to, when you feel inspired to take action, that is something you don't want to ignore. You want to fuel that inspiration, because how I see it is it's also a gift from God and the universe sending you inspiration for you to act on it. So don't let it go to waste. That's also your intuition kind of nudging you like, hey, it's time to move forward. And then the last thing is, of course, you want to reflect. I'm huge on reflecting, sometimes a little too much, where I think, what could have been different? What could have been better? What did I like about that? What didn't I like about that? I kind of do this for everything. And the more that you reflect on, okay, I trusted my intuition here and this is what happened, you can really give yourself evidence of why it worked, or maybe what you would do differently. Make it a habit to regularly check in with yourself. By also checking in, you can make little adjustments where needed. So in the end, remember, use your intuition to your advantage. We all have it. The more that you can hear it, the easier it becomes to trust it. And think of your intuition as like having a wise friend with you 24/7 that always has your back and knows what is in your best interest. If you made it to the end, leave the word intuition in the comments so I know that you made it. And thank you if you did. You're a real one if you made it to the very end. Hope that you can tap into your intuition more. I'd love to hear any stories that you might have about when you trusted your intuition. If you have any, I would love to hear them. Inspire each other in the comments. If you like this video, I have a feeling you'll like these other videos as well. So make sure to watch those after. Bye friends, and I'll see you in the next video.